It's Wednesday the 15th of April from the Channel M newsroom. This is the Lunchtime News and these are today's headlines. Burning in agony, the mum of two whose head swelled up after using a bottle of hair dye.
I had just busted out in blisters from the top of my head to tip of my toe. It's been the most horrendous 13 days I have ever gone through.
Also coming up, the parents demanding answers over the time taken to deal with their son who'd been stabbed.
I just thought it was going to die if the ambulance didn't hurry up. My daughter rang the ambulance and the police, but it was just scary because he was in and out of consciousness on the floor and going sort of like a funny colour.
And one of our reporters faces her toughest challenge yet as she prepares for the Manchester 10K.
I think you have to be the right type of person. You've got to be fairly fit to begin with and motivated. I think everybody should try it once.
Good afternoon. First this lunchtime, a woman from Ramsbottom has been speaking of the pain she suffered when a routine home hair dye went wrong. Susan Taylor was left with a burning sensation and her ears turned black after suffering an allergic reaction to the colouring. She now wants other women to read the instructions on such bottles more carefully.
I coloured my hair with Garnier colour at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. When I was going to bed at 10:30, I was experiencing a rash on my face and it was burning. During the week, it turned into black crust. My ears was black, my face was black, everywhere was black. And then I just busted out in blisters from the top of my head to tip of my toe. It's been the most horrendous 13 days I have ever gone through. On the box, it says you've got to do a skin patch for 48 hours. I've been colouring my hair since I was 17-year-old and I've never done a skin patch. But this occasion, I did, but only for 12 hours. Nobody puts it on the neck for 48 hours. We just don't, because we believe in the product. That's where I lose, because I only tested it for half a day. Garnier lady said, we'll be there and we'll support you and we'll give you your fare to and from hospital and pay for my prescriptions as a goodwill gesture. I was incensed and that's why I'm shouting out.
Well, the makers of Garnier Nutrice, which Susan Taylor used, say such allergies are extremely rare. They also tell us that skin allergy tests must be carried out 48 hours before the pack is used. Coronation Street star Mikey North has had his jaw broken while walking home from a night out. The actor who plays Gary Windass needed emergency surgery following trouble early on Saturday morning in Scarborough. A 19-year-old man's been arrested and released on bail. The soap's bosses have had to rearrange filming schedules. 2 people have been arrested after a man was found stabbed to death at a flat in Bolton. Police found the victim, who's thought to be in his 40s, at an address on Chapman Street. A man and a woman are being questioned and we understand the male suspect also had stab wounds to his arm and abdomen. A police sergeant caught on camera hitting a woman at the G20 protests has been suspended. It's after this footage appeared online showing him appearing to swipe at her before hitting her across the legs with a baton. Scotland Yard say the matter raises immediate concerns. It'll be investigated by the Independent Police Complaints Commission. The parents of a teenager who was stabbed over the weekend in Partington say his injuries could have been avoided if police had responded sooner to reports of a fight. Michael Green, who's 17, is still being treated in hospital for stomach injuries. His parents have been speaking to Ben Bland about the ordeal.
And as I turned around, my son come running towards me with his T-shirt up and said I'd been stabbed. And then he just collapsed on the pavement, which was horrible because he thought he was dying. And all this blood was just losing a load of blood.
At about 8 o'clock on Sunday evening, a fight broke out among a group of youths just over there, in which 17-year-old Michael Green was stabbed in the stomach. He then staggered over here and fell to the ground on Wood Lane. He was rushed to Trafford General Hospital and intensive care, where he underwent emergency surgery. A 32-year-old man from London was arrested at the scene and has since been charged with wounding with intent to do grievous bodily harm. Michael's parents were pleased with the care he received from paramedics and police at the scene. But they think it took police at least 20 minutes to get there, and they feel that time was crucial.
I think if they would have turned up earlier, they would have stopped the stabbing and obviously dealt with the people. But we have a local police station which doesn't seem to be staffed at night time, and we don't seem to have local police all night, you see, and obviously it takes too long for the police to get from outside the areas to the area. Plus, obviously, the ambulance as well. It's when they got here, it's fantastic, but it's getting here we had the trouble with. Getting to the scene fast enough.
I just thought it was going to die if the ambulance didn't hurry up. My daughter rang the ambulance and the police, but it was just scary because he was in and out of consciousness on the floor and going sort of like a funny colour.
What was he saying to you?
He just kept saying, "I'm going to die, Mum, I'm going to die." So I was stroking his head. I said, "You're not going to die. You're not going to die."
You took some photos of Michael while he was in intensive care. Yeah. Why did you feel that was something important to do?
I'd like other people to obviously see this and just think, walk away, don't get involved. I mean, obviously Michael went there to try and help a friend who's getting attacked, and he was attacked himself and obviously stabbed and seriously injured. He wasn't carrying a knife himself. We had no idea these other people were carrying a knife. So obviously he's been stabbed, been hurt, and just ring the police and walk away.
Ben Bland, Channel M News.
While responding to claims that emergency crews took too long to arrive, the North West Ambulance Service says the patient was treated approximately 10 minutes from the initial 999 call and taken to hospital within 28 minutes of our arrival on scene. Our rapid response paramedics' primary role is to assess and give treatment while waiting for an ambulance to arrive. In this particular case, the ambulance was only on scene for 11 minutes before the patient was taken to hospital. We've not yet been able to speak to Greater Manchester Police about the family's concerns. Liverpool will stop and fall silent to remember the 96 fans who died in the Hillsborough disaster later. It's exactly 20 years since they were killed on the terraces of the Sheffield Wednesday football ground during an FA Cup semi-final. 2 minutes silence will be kept. Thousands of fans are expected to gather to mark the anniversary. The Manchester Evening News sports reporter Stuart Mattison, who's in Portugal covering United's match against FC Porto tonight, was covering that match 2 decades ago.
I was covering the game for a newspaper, and memories etched in my head forevermore on that horrible day. Saw things that you should never see when reporting a football match, basically. But I was lucky I came home. 96 people didn't from that day. It was horrible.
Stuart, did it affect the way you view football now?
Well, in terms of I've had to cover stories since, people calling for a return to terraces. Now, and I've done those stories without much conviction, to be honest, because I wouldn't want to see a return to the terraces at all.
Opposition is growing against plans to shut sorting offices in Bolton, Oldham and Stockport, with the loss of up to 900 jobs. Bosses say the changes will improve efficiency, with mail going to Manchester to be processed instead. We've been getting reaction from Bolton councillor John Walsh.
Well, the proposal is to close the Bolton sorting office and to move it to a centralised network in Manchester. And my great concern about that is that it reduces the quality of the service for Bolton customers.
How many jobs are we talking about?
We're talking about several hundred which were affected, some of which may be transferred. But nonetheless, it is job losses here in the Bolton Borough at a time of the economic crisis.
The figure 400's been used, is that right?
I've heard that figure. The Royal Mail have never confirmed, as far as I'm concerned, an absolute figure. As I say, all they do is to fudge it by saying some of the jobs will be transferred. We will lose the distinctiveness of the borough by the removal of the Bolton frank from envelopes from mail posted in Bolton.
Can you just explain that?
Yes, at the moment, Post, which is posted in Bolton, has the Bolton postmark. It has a frank that says Bolton on it. Yeah. And that identity, not crucial in terms of the wider delivery, but part and parcel of this loss of a local identity, of us being subsumed into a greater Manchester. We have a distinct identity, as does Stockport, as do the other boroughs.
A man's critically hurt after a crash in Rusholme. The 19-year-old was riding a bike when he collided with a Ford Focus, leaving him with head and leg injuries. The car then drove off. A 21-year-old man was later arrested on suspicion of dangerous driving. The Foreign Office has condemned North Korea for throwing out staff from the United Nations nuclear watchdog. Inspectors have been ordered out of the country after condemning a recent rocket launch. Officials there say they will now restart a nuclear reactor and boycott international talks on disarmament. The number of people thinking of buying a house has gone up for the 5th month in a row. Sales of properties have also increased for the first time in more than a year. The Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors says people are taking advantage of low interest rates and falling prices. A new service to show people how to manage their money is being started here in Greater Manchester. The area has been chosen to try out the Money Made Clear programme over the next year to see if it should be extended nationwide.
Simple, practical advice that you can get via the web, via telephone or through face-to-face, helping people of all ages and really providing them with support so they can manage their money better, so they don't get into debt, so they can help make better decisions.
I think it's been really useful today. I can't wait for everything to be launched and for people to be able to get help and guidance through anything that they really need, like with debt and with just basically budgeting on just a small scale or a large scale.
Well, we hope that round about 1/2 to 3/4 of a million people will actually use the service over the next 12 months. And if it's successful, like we think it will be, we'll want to see it go on, not just here, but expand right across the country as well.
Right, let's take a look at the lunchtime sports headlines now, and Mike's here with details of United's match against Porto this evening.
James, thank you. A huge task for United in Portugal later, as they'll have to become the first British club to record a win in the Estadio do Dragão if they are to reach the Champions League semi-finals. The teams drew 2-2 at Old Trafford last week, and with Porto unbeaten in their past 20 matches and on the verge of clinching a 4th consecutive domestic league title, the odds appear heavily stacked against Sir Alex Ferguson's men. However, United are unbeaten on their Champions League travels for almost 2 years, although they are without a win in their previous 3 European away games. They're playing in a record 10th Champions League quarter-final in what will be Sir Alex's 150th Champions League tie in charge. Well, on this morning's breakfast show, I spoke to the Manchester Evening News United correspondent Stuart Matheson, who, well, like many of us, was at a loss to explain United's recent spell of indifferent form.
It's hard to think that, 4, 5 weeks, 6 weeks ago, we were calling them the Invincibles. They were world champions. They were going to go for the quintuple, which is still alive, obviously. And we were saying how great it was that Sir Alex Ferguson could, swap his team around, no matter how many injuries or whatever, and they got through it, and it was fantastic. I don't know. Momentum can end just like that, can't it? And suddenly a domino effect has taken place, and they're struggling. I mean, they're still winning against Villa, against Sunderland, but they were poor against Porto last week, and they have really a massive task on their hands tonight.
And whatever happens tonight, we'll have highlights from Portugal on tomorrow's breakfast show and in our early evening news bulletin. That's from 5 o'clock. Now, City's Shay Given, he's asked the club's fans for patience on the eve of their UEFA Cup second leg tie against Martignol's Hamburg. That begins tomorrow, and they'll start that game with a 3-1 first leg advantage. Given believes recent comparisons between the Blues and Roman Abramovich's Chelsea, well, they're unfair, as the Stamford Bridge outfit were already a top-4 side when the Russian took over. Former Hayward pro and Zimbabwean captain Andy Flower is expected to be named as England's new cricket director of cricket later today, with his reign expected to begin on May the 6th. Flower was once ranked as the best batsman in the world and ended his international career with a batting average of 51. In Rugby League, Salford City Reds have signed Wigan's Darryl Goulding on loan with the 21-year-old centre. He's expected to make his debut in Saturday's game in Perpignan against the Catalan Dragons. And staying with the Reds, Director of Football Steve Sims has been speaking to us about his side's historic 30-20 win against Leeds at Headingley.
It was a fantastic win. We've not been to, certainly in the chairman's time here, and I think he's been here 27 years, gone to Leeds and at Headingley and won a game. So it's been just a really great weekend for us. The Easter Bunny was fantastic to us. We had a great win here on Friday against Warrington. And then to back that up on Monday, which is not easy to do, go to Leeds and get the points there. You don't know why one day you get out of bed and you don't feel so good, or you have some players, early on in the season we're having off days and you didn't perform so well, and then all of a sudden, we've won 3 in a row, and that down to also, we did get a little bit of luck against Hull. The final pass may have been a little bit forward, but luck went our way, and then the little bit of luck brings a little bit of confidence, and we're on a bit of a roll, and professional sport, you need that bit of luck and confidence.
Now, the Bellevue Aces lost last night's Elite League match against Wolverhampton 59-35, their 3rd consecutive away reversal of the season. Highlights from that meeting in our news bulletin from 5 o'clock. And finally, in Formula One, the sport's governing body has just ruled Jenson Button's Brawn car, along with those from the Toyota and Williams teams, are legal, leaving them free to race in Shanghai's Chinese Grand Prix. That's it from me for now, but we'll have some more sport for you in our early evening news bulletin from 5 o'clock.
Mike, thanks very much for the update. Still to come on Wednesday's programme, the latest on the police search for a rapist in Denton and reaction to how the recession is leaving some pensioners forced to go hungry.
In fairness to the government, the benefits are there if they'll claim them. The government are trying to look for these sorts of things. But unfortunately, some of the pensioners will not claim for all sorts of reasons, but often you find it's a principle, they just don't like to be on means tested.
Welcome back to Channel M's Lunchtime News. There are more of our main headlines online at channelm.co.uk. On there right now, exclusive pictures of an ambulance that was delayed by Manchester's notorious rising bollards, and the chemical leak threatening wildlife in a Greater Manchester river. That's at channelm.co.uk. Police in Denton are stepping up patrols to reassure women concerned by a string of recent rapes. 3 have been reported, and police think 2 of those could have been carried out by the same man. Georgia Calvin-Smith has more on this.
Police have described 2 of the recent rapes in Tameside as truly horrendous. They happened within a week of each other, and police suspect that they could be linked. The first took place on the 4th of April at around 3 a.m. in the morning. The victim was a woman in her 40s who was dragged into a car park in Denton before being raped and beaten. The second attack happened a week later, on the evening of the 11th of April. This time, the victim was attacked at knife point after a man first asked her for the time. In both cases, the attacker was described as white with dark gelled hair and wearing dark clothes. In order to reassure people living here in Denton, Greater Manchester Police has put on a mobile police station and also extra patrols on the street. But they're also reminding people, especially women, to take extra precautions when out and about by following some very basic safety advice.
If you are going out late at night or you're going out with your friends, just to make sure that people know where you're going, people know who you're with, that when you return home you keep to well-lit areas. If possible, get a taxi. Do not take walkways or dark alleyways, and always make sure somebody knows where you are and what time you're coming home.
A third rape that also happened on the 4th of April is thought to be unconnected. In this case, the victim was found in a distressed state on Mottram Road. Police are asking that anyone with any information about any of the attacks get in touch with Crime Stoppers on the number below. Georgia Calvin-Smith, Channel M News.
It's claimed a fifth of pensioners are skipping meals to save money. Research from Age Concern and Help the Aged has found 2/5 are struggling to pay for essential items. They're calling for benefits to be automatically given to older people, an idea supported by many of them.
Some of the pensioners will not claim for all sorts of reasons, but often you find it's a principle, they just don't like to be on means tested. Some of the pensioners I speak to complain over coming into this world before the war in the 20s and 30s, coming into the world on means testing. And they say, well, I'm not going to leave the world on means testing. So it's that sort of barrier. I speak to being, as most pensioners speak to other pensioners, telling them to claim, but you can't get beyond that sort of thing, you know. So, yeah, it is a problem. There's no doubt about it. I think the only way out of it is to give all the pensioners exactly the same amount.
A man from Stockport who tried to kill his girlfriend by slicing her neck during an attack branded vicious and calculated has been jailed. Joe Creedy of Stockport Road West subjected the 24-year-old to years of abuse, which culminated in an horrific assault. He pleaded guilty to attempted murder and has been jailed for 11 years. Next, if you're preparing for this year's Manchester 10K, you're not alone. Thousands of runners are getting ready for the final push, ready for the event. Our reporter Georgia Calvin-Smith is one of them, and this week we've been following her training on a week-long army-style boot camp. In this final instalment, you can see how she faced her biggest challenge yet.
Winners never quit. Quitters never win. What are you?
We'd been pushed to the brink, and now I and my fellow boot camp recruits faced the ultimate test. And we still didn't know what it was going to be.
One of the recruits who's actually done one of these boot camps before, God knows why you come back. Anyway, she said that the last day is always abominable, and Coach seems to have developed this rather hellish cackle.
Eventually, we were given our marching orders. I tried to keep my mind on why I was putting myself through this.
What you've done here has definitely given you a good kickstart to your fitness to get you ready.
Often, yeah, it's something like doing a 10k race that will actually get somebody motivated to start exercising again. And then they start almost immediately seeing the benefits.
Well done, girls. Our ranks were dwindling. After the warm-up, 2 more recruits decided that their injuries meant that they weren't up to the final hike. The rest of us headed up the steep and rocky trail. Out of the 15 who'd signed up, only 6 of us completed the last scramble. Boot camp had put the boot in for over half of the original recruits.
I think you have to be the right type of person. You've got to be fairly fit to begin with and motivated. I think everybody should try it once.
A week of exertion, starvation and squats had finally paid off. We made it! After 7 days of torture. But it is worth it because the views are magnificent. I genuinely feel a sense of achievement and I feel completely ready for the 10K. Well, ready to start training for the 10K. God, it's so windy up here. I'd walked further uphill than I ever thought possible, done more than my fair share of push-ups, and, most importantly, kept going even when I didn't want to. I can do anything!
Not only am I physically fitter, I think mentally I'm more comfortable with pushing myself.
Yeah, feeling pretty good. Actually, that's a lie. I feel awful because my whole body is racked with pains and aches and twinges. But up here, where it counts, that's why I feel good.
And if, like Georgia, you are in training, good luck for the big day. Let's take a look at the weather now with the forecast. Here's Michelle Eagleton.
Well, we are looking forward to a glorious afternoon. Lots of sunshine is expected. It's going to stay mainly dry heading into the evening as well. Highs of between 16 and 15 across Greater Manchester. Just a little bit cooler over in Bolton and Bury. They're going to see highs of 13 today. But is it going to stay as pleasant as that for the rest of the week? Well, let's take a look at the 5-day forecast for you and see what it has in store, because tomorrow is going to be wet and windy, I'm afraid. Should dry up by Friday and be mainly cloudy. Then on Saturday, a mixture of sunshine and showers, keeping that sunshine all the way through for Sunday.
This is Channel M, our top stories. A woman from Ramsbottom's been left with burns after an allergic reaction to a bottle of hair dye. Susan Taylor's head swelled up and her ears turned black when she tried the colour. She's now warning other women to follow the instructions more carefully. Coronation Street actor Mikey North's been left with a broken jaw after an attack following a night out. The actor, who plays Gary Windass, was hurt while going home with his girlfriend in Scarborough. And a murder inquiry is on in Bolton after a man was found stabbed to death in a flat. 2 people have been arrested. Those are today's headlines, and that was the Lunchtime News. We'll have more on all those stories in our early evening news with Eamon O'Neill from 5 tonight, but from me and the Lunchtime team, bye-bye for now.